Hello, so today what I want to talk about is bridging all of you in, and what does that look like? And what kind of sparked this topic for me was this idea of, having ourselves separate, having a certain versions of ourselves from one walk of life and certain versions of ourselves from other walks of life. And I've seen other people kind of broach this topic as well, just this sort of idea that we have to bring all of ourselves into alignment. We have to show up in all of these different areas of our lives equally. We have to give it our all within all different factions of what we experience our lives to be. And so for me, I've had this whole thing around, so my career kind of before I went into the sort of healing world professionally, I was a poet and performer, and that was my full-time job. That's just, what I did. It was my career was performing and writing and all of this kind of stuff, which is of course great. There was lots of things I very much loved about that, and I love freedom of expression. I'm not a 9-to-5 girl. I don't think I've ever had a 9-to-5 job in my life. It's just that was never going to be me. I could never cope with school. I went to 4 different schools, and I always needed to forge my own path and have my own schedule and kind of write my own rules in that sense. Like, I'm not somebody who's can work for other people. That's just not, it's just not who I am. And everybody is different in that regard. And so I always knew that I was going to be doing something in some way that was kind of where I could be my own authority. And so poetry, performance kind of gave me that freedom. I've done plays and stuff where obviously, you have a director and things like that. So, that is essentially somebody kind of telling you what to do in a way, but you don't lose all of your creative freedom in that process. Or the things that I did, I didn't lose all of my creative freedom. And so, it gave me just this avenue of like self-expression and all of this kind of stuff. Obviously, I've said before, I'm a Pisces, I need my creative freedom. But there was always something kind of in the back of my mind where I was like, this isn't all of it. This isn't all of what I'm here to do, of what I'm here to bring, of what I want to share with the world. But I didn't know exactly what all of that stuff kind of looked like. And then through a series of what some might call unfortunate events, looking at it from the outset, I ended up kind of going deeper into the world of kind of working professionally, looking toward working professionally within the sort of healing sector. And I probably will share more about that one day. But it became very, very clear to me that I was being guided on that path. And I had received a shamanic call when I was 21, and I didn't answer it. I was too scared. I didn't feel like I would be capable of holding space in that way. And, as the sort of turns of Saturn, Saturn works in these sort of 7-year increments worked, I ended up doing, that call ended up coming back when I was 27, about to turn 27. And so, I sort of left this kind of poetry world behind, or that's kind of how it felt to me. I was sort of saying to, my friends, my family, I was like, I'm done, I don't want to do this poetry thing anymore. Like, it's not for me. I no longer feel called to it. And, one of my sort of aspects of my shadow is I can be quite all or nothing. I can forget that sort of balance within. I'm Libra rising, so when I'm out of balance, I swing quite violently towards each end. And so, I was like, I'm done. I never want to perform again. Like, I'm sick of it. And, I was at this point in my career where everything was going really, really great. And, all my friends and family were just like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you just want to leave all of this behind? Like, are you sure that you don't want to, maybe just put it on hold for a bit? And I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. Like, I'm never going back. And as fate would have it, I ended up going back after probably about a 10-month, almost a year break, which was exactly what I needed. And there's still been this kind of like hesitancy from me in terms of like, how do I bridge this poetry thing with the healing thing? Like I felt like I was keeping them very, very separate. Who I was in the sort of poetry world was not me, Shakti, in the healing world. And then I sort of started to realize that those two worlds collide all of the time. The role of the artist, the role of the healer are so intertwined and so interconnected. And especially with the kind of a lot of the poetry that I did, that was kind of brought a lot of people to me to witness. That was I would talk a lot about ancestral. I was essentially channeling my ancestors, and through my own experiences as well. And although I was always kind of aware that that's what I was doing, I couldn't fully see the full picture of how that was healing, of how that bridged so beautifully into the world of healing and the world of like ancestral, deep ancestral work, And so as I've kind of continued on this journey, it's like those worlds of kind of the merger of those worlds has been more and more apparent. That there's this kind of beautiful sort of symbiotic relationship between these two things, and that I find them both incredibly fulfilling. I do love performing, although I find it scary and nerve-wracking, and every time before a performance I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my god, I'm really nervous. I still there's still something I very much get from that experience of just sharing myself in that way. Just as, I love doing sessional work for people. It just, it lights me up. It makes me feel so fulfilled. I love being able just to pull psychic information. It's like my favorite thing to do. I love it, and I have a natural, inbuilt capability to do that. That's just it's always how I've been. I've always been attuned to the psychic realms. And so it's about, I think when you're trying to sort of find your purpose in the world, it's like, what do you do that's so natural to you? I think there's this whole thing about talent. So I think they say talent is something that you kind of develop. Maybe you have a kind of aptitude towards it, but you develop it, and your gifts are something that you're kind of, obviously, you have to work on them, like with everything, but it's something that you are more, it just comes so naturally to you. And so I think when we're trying to sort of work out what it is that we want to do and what we have to share and bring to the world, it's sort of looking at those things like, what is it, what are the things that come really naturally to you that you also really enjoy, and what are the things that you really enjoy but you want to like really work on to sort of heighten them or excel more within them. And this whole idea of bridging all of these aspects of us together, that allows for our resonance, our field, when we fully show up like that, it allows everything around us to match that energy, or to become a vibrational match. Our experiences are then gonna start to I'm just seeing the image of like a waterfall, it's like once you just start allowing all of that stuff to flow through you, it's like everything else just begins to flow as well. Whereas when you have like, oh, this on the sort of back burner, this is who I am with these people, I don't show them my full spiritual side, this is who I am with these people, I don't show them this other side of me, that we're fractured. we're fragmented, and so all of the experiences that we draw in are only going to mirror and reflect that. And so when I did my show more recently, you know, part of my nerves around it, so I did a performance on the 5th of May, just a couple of days ago, and part of my nerves around it was I was doing some new work, you know, and I've changed a lot since I was performing maybe a year or two ago. And so I had a couple of poems which were kind of quite, you know, spiritual, or referred to the holy, to the sacred. And my work there was always a spiritual element to it, but never so openly, never so like loud, never so blatant. And so I had this real fear, you know, probably some like witch wounding coming in there, you know, of just like, you know, I'm talking about these things that I know people that can be triggering for people. You know, there's so many people on this earth that are so terrified of talking of what is sacred, of talking about what is holy, because it triggers something really, really deep within us, whether that's past life wounding, whether that's wounding from this life, from having religions forced upon us, all of that stuff. You know, there's, you know, people that are sort of very dogmatic in their beliefs around science, really, you know, when you talk about things like that, it's like, no, like that's, you know, a big no kind of thing. And I've come across that so much in my life. And so, yeah, it was kind of, I was having all of my own kind of wounding around being myself, around sharing my thoughts on certain issues, you know, certain spiritual topics. You know, like I used to very much be afraid to share what I knew about that stuff. Like I've loved astrology, I've been into astrology for probably 10 years, something like that. But, you know, and my closer friends would kind of know about it. And, you know, we'd be at a party and they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, she knows loads about astrology, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, shh, what are you doing? Don't tell people that. You know, like I felt I had to hide those parts of me. And as I've gotten older, you know, that sort of ability to hide that has become less and less and less. And the desire to hide that has become less and less and less. And so, you know, for me going on stage and being like, yes, you know, I'm talking about things that could be considered far more spiritual was frightening, was, you know, bringing stuff up within me. But then afterwards, you know, this girl came up to me and she's like, oh my God, hi, like I'm an astrologist. Like I would love to do your chart. You know, it's like when you start to just, when you open up like that, when you put yourself out there like that, you just, everything begins to magnetize towards you in a different way. And then there was the day after I went to the sauna and this guy started talking to me and he's like, yeah, you know, I'm psychic, I'm this and that. And I was just like, oh my God, you know, it's like when you put yourself out there into the world, when you bridge all of yourself in, when you give the world everything that you are and you don't hide these certain parts of you, that's when everything begins to open up in this whole new way, because you're showing the universe, like, I'm not afraid of who I am. I'm not afraid of what other people perceive or have the potential to perceive me as. I'm just gonna, show up in my fullness. And so the universe goes, okay, you're ready, you know, you're ready for your next level. So I think if you're feeling stagnant, if you're feeling like things are kind of on hold for you, look at how you show up in these different areas of your life. Are you a different person in front of your family than with your work colleagues, than with your friends? And look at how you can begin to bring that into a deeper sense of alignment. Yes, of course, I understand, you know, some people work in offices, it's not going to be appropriate to speak to them how you might speak with your friends, but it's just about, you know, you can still maintain a level of professionalism and formality, but still not choosing to hide certain aspects of you. Be willing to be open about those certain aspects of you. So yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to share. It's just about being brave. It really, that's kind of what I took from it. I was like, holy shit, that took a lot of courage and a lot of bravery on my part to fully show up as myself, and it was scary, but I felt so much better once I actually did it. I was just like, well, people are gonna think what they think, you know? I'm not gonna like everybody, not everybody's gonna like me, and that's totally okay. So thank you for watching, and yeah, let me know what you think of this little transmission.